So today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and Megalopolis and what Francis Ford Coppola achieved with Megalopolis. So I'm 100% aware that Megalopolis is a commercial failure. Um, I think Megalopolis is a divider in the American community for those who are going to achieve knowledge when they are told not to, right? The basically, many people are avoiding Megalopolis because the critic community has said this movie is garbage and you shouldn't see it. But the reality is, Megalopolis is a exemplary work of an exemplary work of human achievement. It truly transcends its container of art, and it has to be witnessed, it has to be understood, and it has to be executed, right? And I think, and that's, it's exactly like Dungeons and Dragons, right? Dungeons and Dragons needs to be witnessed, it needs to be understood, and then it needs to be executed because it is an exemplary work of human achievement. It doesn't fit into the box of stellar art. It's bigger than that, right? But what I want to talk about today is what Francis Ford Coppola achieved. So what he really achieved with this was you have this situation where he comes in and he refuses to remain within the structure of Hollywood. Hollywood is like the narrative has to be crystal clear. There's no room for ambiguity, and there's also no room for experimentation, right? And he's like, because I know Hollywood, and for Francis Ford Coppola, it's like I know they're not going to allow me to make the movie I want, so I will fund it myself, and he did. So Francis Ford Coppola comes in, and he is the perfect example of what the very best dungeon masters do. They supply a scaffolding, right? They give platforms and they give platforms to walk and climb on. They provide the scaffolding. And then they draw in the talent to build the work, to build the artistic edifice within their scaffolding. And so we need to start thinking, all right, as dungeon masters, we need to build a square space of scaffolding. It needs to be 80 feet wide, it needs to be 60 feet high, and it needs to be 120 feet long, right? And how are we going to do the scaffolding, right? Is it going to be 10 feet by 10? Is it going to be 10 feet and then another set of boards on the pipes, right? Or are we putting in like maybe an area where the talent will need to swing over a gap, right? Because we're not going to provide all the scaffolding there so that we can make the space larger, right? And so what you are seeing when you look at Megalopolis is you're really seeing a space where what's happening is the dungeon master comes in, and that's Francis Ford Coppola, and erects the scaffolding. And then the the true narrative builders come in and they erect the artistic edifice. And so his talent was um, Aubrey Plaza, Shia LaBeouf, Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, Natalie Emanuel, John Voight, um, and they're just, Jason Schwartzman, like just incredible actors and actresses who are going to come in with ready tools, right, and are going to erect an artistic edifice. And then we, the experiencers, are going to come in, right, and we're going to turn that into something special. Right now, I understood it, and what I'm doing is I'm using Megalopolis to make my Dungeons and Dragons games better than they've ever been, right? But the other issue is this is an issue for us as Dungeons and Dragons, as Dungeon Masters and Dragon Masters. Right now, the audience for most home games is literally only the people who are playing. We really need to start thinking about that and thinking about, should the audience for a 5-person Dungeons and Dragons game really be 5 people who are sitting around the outer edge of that table, right? Or are we reducing the number of players to 3 so that 2 people at the table can literally just be experiencers of the narrative and learn wisdom and knowledge and grow from what they experience there, right? And again, we played Dungeons and Dragons for 50 years wrong, right? How do we correct those things? How do we make every campaign its own unique megalopolis? How do we begin to build with Megalon, right? With a bioadaptable building material, right? That builds both organic and builds inorganic. And I think we really need to think hard about what we're going to achieve with our games going forward. Okay, that is the idea of the infrastructure is provided by the dungeon master, and the talent brings ready-made tools and builds the artistic edifice within that scaffolding. I have the time. I'm going to tackle another subject, another Megalopolis subject within this. So, Megalopolis is going to be seen probably by less than 1 million people, and I think when it goes to streaming, it'll almost certainly be behind a paywall. And even if people watch it on the small screen, they will not have a witness. There's no way they can understand even a tenth of what Francis Ford Coppola did in this film, because it was Genesis for the big screen. It really cannot be witnessed, understood, or executed from a small screen viewing. It's impossible. Okay? So here's my question. Did Francis Ford Coppola craft this to be seen by virtually no one, right? So that the only people that would be able to benefit from Megalopolis would be the most bold intellectuals, the most bold emotionalists, and the most bold spiritualists? And if the answer is yes, for Francis Ford Coppola was the same choice made by Gary Gygax. I have continued to call for a simpler, more concise version of Dungeons and Dragons. You know what Hasbro's answer back to me was? No. More complexity, more length, right? 384 pages compared to 275 pages. And literally, the bare ante to even begin Dungeons and Dragons, increasing to 1,150 pages. You can no longer experience Dungeons and Dragons without reading a millennium of pages. The millennium page. We must go over the wall of the millennium page. Was this on purpose, right? So I think that's the thing that is the thing that really is, kind of really making me think right now is, do we have this situation where it's a pipe dream? I so desperately want Dungeons and Dragons to reach the masses, right? But did Gary design it at the beginning to only be experienced by the bravest intellectuals, the bravest emotionalists, and the bravest spiritualists? Or the unique human being who has been able to, we talk about ambidexterity, right? What about, I'm not even sure what the word for triple dexterity is, what about tridexterity, right? Someone who is equally powerful in their intellect, their emotions, and in their spirituality. I'm really kind of haunted by this question of, did Francis Ford Coppola do this on purpose so that only the best humans would be experiencing his exemplary work of human achievement? And if Francis Ford Coppola did that in 2024, is that simply an echo of what Coppola saw Gygax do in 1974? I'm not certain yet, but I'm certain that you just heard every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider like subscribing and have a fetch millennium.